I want to talk about natural grown stem forms. If you look outside to the handicrafts, you can find a lot of these stem forms in use, and we were looking for them in different museums. The problem in Austria is, due to the ongoing industrialization, everything is standardized. I think that's the same more or less all over the world. So the trees should grow rectangular and straight, of course straight. And that's not longer the best way maybe. So we are not using the mechanical potentials we have, or the tree has. And so sometimes we can see that there's a replacement of wood, for example, carbon fibers or whatever. If we look to old literature, you can find a long time ago people talking about crooked trees. They have something excellent, nice, which belongs to them and what straight trees do not have. If you have crooked oak trees or other trees, they can comfortably be used for arches, for example. What makes those crooked assortments so available? That every piece has to have its own specific crook. That's also nice. With one word, it's not always a fault if trees are crooked, because many carpentry or wainwrights work required this crooked shape. Not anymore. We try to set up a kind of systematization on how to talk about. We can talk about the junctions to the root system, or also curved wood, that's more or less the same. We can use a lot of the junctions between the branches and the tree itself. Of course, branch junctions itself. And a small part is overgrown stumps, which is a very nice speciality on the trees. Curved tree stems as the first part. Of course, it could be natural curved trees. In the 19th century, the people started to crook the trees manually, to grow them as a crooked tree. So it's completely stupid in our today's industrial thinking. But they need the crooked trees for a lot of different things. The most prominent ones is the shipbuilding. For example, you can see here the Vasa ship that is very prominent in Europe, especially in Sweden, a very big ship, and it was necessary to have a lot of crooked trees there. And other examples for house building, this some examples from Austria and next to Austria. For example, you can see here, no you can't see because there's the box. Here behind the box you can see a little bit the use of the crooked trees, and also here in this kind here. Another very interesting utilization is here, that's a crooked tree to press the grapes. So very simple way of pressing grapes to produce wine, or for carrying stuff and so on. Next possibility is the root stem junction. Looking here a little bit in the dark, you can see, so we have the straight tree trunk, and here the branch. If you look very carefully, I know it's not easy to see, but you can see here a man carrying a big piece. So that's exactly what we can see here. So they were really looking for these special products. To use it, for example, for slides, for this horse collars, or for example here, these hooks for the rainwater gutter, which you still can find quite often in Austria. If we go to the branch stem junctions, that's very interesting. I will come back to this a little bit later. Of course, that's junction between the stem and the branch. Here's a very nice example. This farm building in Austria, they had some problems, some mechanical problems, and they solved it to put a tree. This is the trunk and this is the branch. So you have a two-sided arm, more or less, to support the roofing. It was very often in use for tool handles, especially for tool handles. What you can see here, that's in Bronze Age, that meaning about 1,200 to 1,500 before Christ. So almost 3,500 years ago. We do a lot of research on this, and that's a reconstruction of this tool handle. And as I've mentioned before, if you look outside, then you can see more or less the same, still in use. This was the way to produce these handles for the scissors. Very easy is just load-bearing systems for different purposes. This was for housing of the bees, for example, or walking sticks, for example. That's the spatterer for cooking, and so on and so on. The branch junction itself, so it's really, if you have the separated tree, that's very easy to use. For example, that's in the easternmost part, and especially in Hungary. In Hungary, they used it a lot for this special kind of well here. And of course, for a lot of different tools, the rake, for example, is very often, you can see here this branch junction. Also the catapult, nowadays the childs are using it. In former times it was necessary to hunt and so on. Also here on the vane, you can see the use here in this special part. Overgrown stumps, it's very, very interesting. You have to have a very special forest type, so very dense forest where the roots can grow to each other, and so that the trees get connected. So it's a very interesting stuff. And if you cut the tree, if you harvest the tree, the stump is still alive, and you can use this wood, this tissue, which is produced after the death. It's not dead, but it's a mother-like. So it's not a regular grown wooden tissue. And this tissue is very strong because it's not aligned. And so the people for mining in the Hallstatt period and Bronze period, once again 1,500 before Christ, they used it for tools like this. That's more or less a shovel or beams made of these overgrown stumps, because they have the size what they need. So what are the advantages at the end? So we've seen some examples, but why should we use it? What are the advantages? No? Looking at the curved tree stems and the wood stem junctions, that meaning that you have a not straight tree trunk, and at the end a not straight board. But if you use this kind of crookedness, you will follow the so-called fibers, what we call fibers, the wooden tissue. So that's very strong. If you cut the same shape out of a board, you will never reach the same mechanical strength because of the cutted fibers. If we look on the branch stem junctions, would be the same for the branch junctions. A lot of research is going on such topics, which is combined in the field of bionics or biomimetics, and it's very popular to look for different utilizations. The nature shows us how it works and how it works best. Here's an example. A colleague of mine was doing here some research. If you look on a branch, it's on softwood, but anyway, a softwood branch. So cracking this branch. So that's the main idea on this experiment. And he produced a plastic cast. So this is really one-to-one copy of this branch, but made of plastic, and a plastic model, meaning it's the same size, the same diameter of the stem, and the same size of the branch, and the same angle of the branch to the stem. And if you do a mechanical testing, which you can't see anymore, it's behind the box here, is the plastic model. So there's not really a strength; it cracks easily. If you use the plastic cast, meaning it's really the same size, the same architecture, then you can see here this blue curve getting up much higher strengths up to cracking, to crashing down. And if you look at the green curve, that's the wooden branch. You see it takes very long, very high strength, and even if you put much more weight on it, it doesn't crack really. So it cracks a little bit, but it still stays in the same size more or less. Of course, this was in wet conditions, not in dry conditions. But you can see here there's a big difference, and you can see there are big advantages using this branch stem connections. I've told you the story about the overgrown stumps. That's mainly due to the not aligned wooden tissue, which is perfect for not cracking. And yeah, so we have seen that people did know that it's meaningful to use these special natural grown assortments, but we, at least in Austria, we do not use it anymore. And innovation, coming back to the statement of innovation, it would be to reuse it, to think about, that's mainly maybe an idea for designers and so on, and architectures, of course. Maybe we can use this high strengths at the end, mechanical stability and so on, again. So that's my message. Thank you. Thank you for the organization and having the opportunity to be here again. Thank you.